This is macOS Ken.
Tim Cook and China and iPhone and China. Updates aplenty for Apple gear. And Apple's big plans for the big screen come into focus. It is Tuesday, the 28th of March, 2023. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from macOS Ken. Brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Collide. Endpoint security powered by people. Learn more and book a demo today at collide.com/macOSKen. This show is also sponsored by BetterHelp, online therapy. Sometimes therapy can feel daunting. Not just finding a therapist, but actually doing the work. Getting to know why we do what we do, trying to implement change, learning coping skills, setting boundaries. Can feel like a lot. BetterHelp takes away some of the hard parts and, for me at least, softens some of the others. First, there's finding a therapist. BetterHelp makes that easier than finding a traditional therapist by a lot. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Since the whole thing happens online, you're not limited to who's around you. And if the therapist you find isn't a match, switching is no trouble and no additional charge. Now, the online part is one of my favorites. My last BetterHelp therapist and I used to text. She'd check in, I'd check in. Felt less formal than normal. More like somebody working with me. But try it and see. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/macOSKen today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/macOSKen. BetterHelp.com/macOSKen. Tim Cook's time in the Middle Kingdom continues. After visiting at least one Apple store over the weekend and speaking at the China Development Forum, a piece from 9 to 5 Mac says Apple CEO met Monday with China's Commerce Minister Wang Wentao. Citing a Reuters report, the piece says the two met to discuss Apple's continued development in China. They're said to have focused specifically on stabilizing industrial and supply chains in China. According to the piece, the Commerce Minister reportedly emphasized to Cook that China is willing to provide a good environment and services for foreign companies, including Apple. All of that was buttressed by an official statement. A CNBC piece quoted that as saying, China will unswervingly promote high-level opening up, steadily promote rules, regulations, management, standards, and other institutional opening up. Yeah, the wording is weird. Maybe a lost in translation thing or a lost in machine translation thing. Kind of makes you wonder, though. Think China's heard about India and Vietnam and Arizona? Speaking of China, as we so often do, can you guess what the top 3 selling smartphones were for that country last year? According to market tracker Counterpoint Research, they were iPhone 13. The firm's blurb says Apple contributed over 10% of China's smartphone sales volume in 2022. Assuming we're going by units, that is over 98 million iPhones for China alone. Running down the top 3, iPhone 13 was first, iPhone 13 Pro Max was second, and iPhone 13 Pro was third. A few interesting points among those points. For starters, those 3 iPhones were the only iPhones in China's top 10. Second, 2022 was the first year one of Apple's Pro phones was able to crack the top 10. And third, it is crazy how many smartphones must be on sale out there. According to Counterpoint, the share of the top 10 models in China has been flat at around 22% for the past 3 years, hence Apple's top 3 accounting for just over 10% of the market. One other note of interest. Counterpoint says all smartphones in the 2022 list were priced at less than $500. The 3 iPhones, of course, not included. Monday was a big day for OS updates from Apple. Most of our update news comes compliments of Mac rumors, starting with the release of iOS and iPadOS 16.4. Some of the most anticipated features for the release include 21 new emoji, including animals, hand gestures, and objects, notifications for web apps added to the home screen, voice isolation for cellular calls, and support for duplicate detection in iCloud shared photo library. There are also new accessibility features, including voiceover support for maps in the weather app, and the feature that'll let the phone dim flashing light or strobe effect video automatically, provided that feature has been turned on by the user. All of that, plus changes to the Apple Podcasts app, an order tracking widget, support for the PlayStation 5 DualSense Edge wireless controller, security fixes, and bug fixes. iOS and iPadOS 16.4 are available now in settings on compatible devices. As tends to be the way, Apple did release a security-focused update for iPhones and iPads that have not or cannot make the move to blank OS 16.anything. A piece from Mac Rumor says if your device is running 15.7. whatever, you need to update to 15.7.4. That fixes an actively exploited vulnerability, according to the report. In lockstep with the OS releases, Apple on Monday expanded the availability of emergency SOS via satellite to 6 more countries. That's the feature that'll let users call for emergency assistance when they're out of Wi-Fi and cellular range. It'll also let them message contacts when they're off the grid, letting those contacts know that they are, in fact, still alive. Available in a few countries already, a piece from Apple Insider says the service has expanded to a few more. They include Austria, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Belgium, man. Belgium. Making our way to the trad computer, Mac Rumors has word of the release of macOS Ventura 13.3. Some hot newness is the same as the iOS and iPadOS updates, such as new emoji, duplicate detection in iCloud shared photo library, and the aforementioned accessibility features. Then there are Mac-specific features like one tied to Freeform, transliteration support for a few keyboards and languages foreign to the US, keyboard layouts for Native American languages, security fixes, and bug fixes. Just like with the iPhones and iPads, Apple's also offering security updates for Macs that can't or won't make the move to Ventura. Those come in the forms of macOS Monterey 12.6.4 and macOS Big Sur 11.7.5. Each is available now through the Settings app on an associated Mac. Moving now to the wrist. Apple on Monday released watchOS 9.4. Fixes, expansions, and a chance at deletion on this one. Deletion of preloaded apps, that is. Features listed by Mac Rumors include making it so that wake-up alarms are not silenced with cover to mute. That should keep users from accidentally canceling their alarms during sleep. Cycle tracking makes the move to Moldova and Ukraine, and AFib history is now available in Colombia, Malaysia, Moldova, Thailand, and Ukraine. As for the preloaded app deletion, a separate piece from Mac Rumors says the watchOS update makes that possible. It's not just that you can remove the apps. Rather, the piece says you can delete activity, depth, emergency siren, find my, heart rate, maps, wallet, workout, and world clock right from the watch. According to the report, prior to watchOS 9.4, you could remove an app from your Apple Watch by removing it from your iPhone, but the app needed to be deleted from both devices. With watchOS 9.4, you can delete an app like Activity or Maps on your Apple Watch, leaving it intact on the iPhone. All of that plus security fixes too. watchOS 9.4 is available now through the Watch app on an associated iPhone. Let us now do the and the rest thing. Pieces from Mac rumors say tvOS 16.4 for Apple TV 4K and Apple TV HD does the thing where flashing or strobing video can be dimmed automatically, provided you set it to do so. It also brings security fixes. HomePod software 16.4 brings stabs and perfs. That's stability and performance improvements. And finally, Studio Display Firmware Update 16.4 does stuff worthy of a studio display. Things having to do with in-field recalibration and the spectroradiometer. I don't know what they do either. But come on, you sprung for the studio display. You might as well go for the free firmware update, too. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Collide. Endpoint security powered by people. Philosophically, I am a huge fan of Collide. I truly appreciate the respect that they show the end user. See, Collide believes that if your workers know how and why to fix an issue before it becomes a problem, they'll do it. It's part of their tenets of honest security, a belief that a positive working relationship between the end user and the security team is incredibly valuable and worth fostering, and that end users are capable of making rational and informed decisions about security risks when educated and honestly motivated. That said, not everybody's going to get everything right all the time. If you're an Okta user, Collide can get your entire fleet to 100% compliance. After telling them what they need to do and why, if after a certain amount of time a user's device still isn't cutting it on the security side, the user cannot log into your cloud apps until they have fixed the problem. Collide is the only device trust solution that enforces compliance as part of authentication, and it is built to work seamlessly with Okta. Hopefully, though, if you're using Collide, it's not going to come to anybody getting locked out, because your workforce is already on board with the whole security thing. Visit collide.com/macOSken to learn more and book a demo. That's KOLIDE.com/macOSken. Collide.com/macOSken. Apple's bought a company that uses AI to compress videos. That is the word from TechCrunch. According to the report, Apple has quietly acquired a Mountain View-based startup, WaveOne, that was developing AI algorithms for compressing video. Like really quietly. Like Apple won't even say it happened. That is how quiet. Still, other signs do point to the acquisition. Not only are some former WaveOne workers, including one of its co-founders, now rocking an Apple lanyard, the startup's former head of sales and business development posted about the sale on LinkedIn last month. According to the sales dude, after almost 2 years at WaveOne, last week we finalized the sale of the company to Apple. We started our journey at WaveOne realizing that machine learning and deep learning video technology could potentially change the world. Apple saw this potential and took the opportunity to add it to their technology portfolio. Change the world in ways one assumes you will see, but probably won't perceive. If I understand what TechCrunch is saying, WaveOne uses AI to reduce the size of video files and apply intelligence to the video decompression side, prioritizing faces, for example, or the subject of a given shot. As for Apple's interest, TechCrunch says the obvious answer is more efficient streaming. Even minor improvements in video compression could save on bandwidth costs or enable services like Apple TV Plus to deliver higher resolutions and frame rates depending on the type of content being streamed. Yes, it is as Tim Cook said, even minor improvements in video compression can change the world. I don't think Tim Cook said that. Fitbit has a message for you users of older iPhones. Might be time to think about an Apple Watch. The site 9 to 5 Google says Fitbit has raised its minimum requirements for iOS devices. The app, and in turn the fitness trackers, now requires iOS 15 or higher in order to function. As recently as earlier this month, Fitbit required iOS 14 or higher. Conversely, this week's watchOS 9.4 update runs on Apple Watches as far back as Series 4, while the Watch app only needs an operating system as recent as iOS 10, which isn't recent at all. But hey, Fitbit, you do you. And finally today, Apple TV Plus is signaling its intentions on its biggest film so far, way in advance. The Cupertino streamer issued a press release Monday announcing a limited release, a wide release, and vague streaming plans for the Martin Scorsese film, Killers of the Flower Moon. It's hard to imagine you need a reminder, but just in case, the release says, based on David Grann's best-selling nonfiction book of the same name, Killers of the Flower Moon is set in 1920s Oklahoma and depicts the serial murder of members of the oil-wealthy Osage Nation, a string of brutal crimes that came to be known as the Reign of Terror. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Lily Gladstone, and Jesse Plemons, among others. If you just can't wait, you will have to. And if you just can't wait to see it at home, you will really have to. According to Apple, the film will first be released exclusively in theaters worldwide in partnership with Paramount Pictures, limited on Friday the 6th of October, and wide on Friday the 20th of October, before streaming globally on Apple TV Plus. How long before? Yeah, apparently you'll get it when you get it. News of the staggered release would seem to fold in nicely with rumors we heard last week about Apple's big movie plans. It was then that Bloomberg said Apple plans to put about $1 billion a year into films that it would then put into theaters. Highlighting the Bloomberg rumor, a piece from Yahoo Finance said Apple TV Plus films thought to be hitting the silver screen before your TV screen included Matthew Vaughn's Argylle, Ridley Scott's Napoleon, and Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. Today on the Mac Observer's Daily Observations podcast, TMO managing editor Jeff Butts and I talk about Tim Cook's time in China and iPhone's fortune in China, plus a look at Monday's OS updates and questions around them. That is all today on the Daily Observations podcast from the Mac Observer, online at macobserver.com or wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/macOSKen. This show is also sponsored by Collide, endpoint security powered by people. Learn more and book a demo today at collide.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.